So away we go. So first off, thank you so much for making some time tonight to join me. I'm grateful to the time and effort that you all put into the game and into your children to make this happen. So like I say, I want to make sure that this is informative, that we have a good conversation tonight, and that we all walk away taking something from tonight as well. So I'd like to start off this presentation with a welcome and land acknowledgement. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. So who am I? Some of you may have seen me, some of you may haven't, some of you may know me, some of you may not. So my name is Jordan Stewart. I'm the CMSA technical leader. And previous to this, I'm the former Alberta Soccer Association regional coach for Southern Alberta and Alberta Rex director. I've worked with players from all over the place in this province predominantly, as well as a bit in this country. And I've worked with players as young as 5 and 6 years old, all the way through to university age players. My previous role was primarily based around player development, so provincial team programming, Rex programming, our high performance streams, as well as district outreach, so helping out all of the districts in Alberta to develop strategies to improve their game locally, and then also support all of the coach education that we did from the grassroots community courses, which are ongoing. I believe there's one actually tonight, all the way through to a B license. So kind of a wide swath of experience that I had within that role that I'm trying to apply now into my current role with Calgary Minor Soccer. As I've mentioned, I've worked in grassroots clubs up in Edmonton, as well as my own club. I worked as the U18 coach for the FC Edmonton Professional Academy that's now gone, but was in place in Edmonton for quite some time. I've worked with youth national team development systems, colleges and universities, some community outreach programs, and also now my current role in a district governing body role. Primarily, my role focuses on everything that happens inside the white lines. So players, coaches, referees, our match formats, and really where we're trying to move the game locally here in Calgary, in alignment with our provincial and national governing bodies as well. So originally, I had a layoff from Alberta Soccer in May of 2020, right during the pandemic. They said, well, nothing's really happening, and I was sat at home with a newborn. I had a son 2 weeks later. That was the one that you were probably hearing stomping around. Had him 2 weeks later, and I was relaxing at home, as I'm sure a lot of us were during a pandemic, when I got a phone call from the old executive director of CMSA saying, I know you're not doing anything. Would you take on a small role and a little contract for us to write a technical plan? And I said, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun, Sue. We can definitely give that a go and try and actually implement a lot of the things that myself and Alberta Soccer colleagues were advocating for. So within this technical plan, it revolved around 3 key areas, and one was govern, the other was develop, and the third was grow. So I want to make sure that I'm accountable and CMSA is accountable to all of you as well, that we're trying to work this plan, we're trying to lay a foundation for the game to be incredibly successful, incredibly inclusive, and incredibly accessible going into a home World Cup in 2026 and then beyond that as well. You'll also notice that this technical plan is coming to the end of its lifespan right now. So I'm currently writing a new one for 2024 to 2027. So that should I win the lottery tomorrow and no longer work for the association or get hit by a bus or something, someone else can sit in this chair and can continue working along the same path or find better solutions as well. But at least then there's a plan and a roadmap for people to work off of. Within this govern area, a lot of it was around match formats and alignment. There's obviously some parent eds, some town halls, some rule modifications and such, and it gives you an idea of what we're trying to do in terms of ongoing and complete. This is a small sample of what the full technical plan is, as this is our public-facing document, but our internal one is about 40 odd pages long. So trying to do high quality and thorough work. Some people will disagree with that on this call, and that's fine, but that's our goal, is to do great work. You'll see here within the develop area of focus, you'll see some things that are delayed and delayed for a multitude of reasons. And I could sit here and give you a multitude of excuses. At the end of the day, we just haven't gotten there yet. You'll see some things that are ongoing as well that we are continuing to work at in terms of club licensing, technical culture series to help coaches develop, club connects and TD collaboration locally. And then lastly was the grow area that I mentioned. And really, we tried to focus on some diversity, equity, inclusion, and indigeneity pieces here, and also ways to engage the membership that we currently have in new ways, and to also find new membership within the organization and engage people within the game that hasn't been done before in Alberta. So looking to lead and looking to grow the game at multiple levels. I'd be remiss if I don't talk about the actual Canada Soccer player pathway, and really why we're all here is putting the player at the center of these decisions that we make, and trying to really have clarity on what their pathway looks like through the game. You'll see a lot of colored boxes on your screen, and if this is the first time that you've seen this diagram, it can look a little confusing, but it's actually quite simple once you understand what's going on. Typically, people would start in the game in these three bottom boxes within the grassroots area: active start, fundamentals, learn to train, and they would typically flow upward through the diagram. Then, depending on the player's maybe interests, motivations, ability, time commitment, a myriad of factors, they would filter into one of these three boxes. Hopefully, this is if we retain them in the game. They would go into a Soccer for Life community stream, which is U13 to U18. So thinking about recreational play, thinking about competitive play for this next box, and we can transfer laterally across the diagram as well. We can transfer into these stage 4, 4.55, or all the way up through into 7, which is those adult leagues in Soccer for Life. This gives you an idea of who operates where and what they kind of do. So you'll see CMSA operates in 5 of those boxes in terms of cultivating a grassroots environment for our youngest players, and then trying to retain them through that into their teenage years. If we do things well, and if our clubs do things well, they filter upwards into CUSA, which is our Calgary United Soccer Association, which is our men's and co-ed leagues, and our Calgary Women's Soccer Association for our women's leagues. There are Major League up there, and then as you filter across into stage 5 here, train to compete, you'll see college, university, NCAA, USL2, UWS, and newly launched this past outdoor League One Alberta. If we're still talking about the youth stream, though, we can filter in through into AYSL and standards-based environments, and then also into recs and professional clubs as we filter up and across the pathway. So into youth national teams and youth national team development streams. In my old roles, I would predominantly work in stage 5, and stage 4.5 is typically where I was focused in terms of the player pathway. Now, obviously 1, 2, 3, and 7, with a little sprinkling of 4 and 4.5 now. So before every season, we create what we call our CMSA program handbook, and really this is the encyclopedia, or the CMSA Bible, if you will, in terms of what we're going to be doing in the upcoming season. We develop this both for clubs and all parents and everyone else to have a look at, but predominantly the clubs use this information to then base their registration information and registration packages off of. I'd ask you to do something in terms of find this on our website at calgaryminersoccer.com. and give it a quick look through and see if what your club advertised was similar, if not aligned, to what we are both advocating for from a philosophical standpoint, but also the nuts and bolts of what the actual soccer program that you've signed your child up for actually looks like. So I'm going to take 2 seconds. I'm just going to check the chat and the question and answer really quick. Nothing in there, so we'll continue to forge ahead. I'd also like to speak quickly about club licensing. Club licensing is something that's come into Canada soccer as a whole over the past few years. And you'll see on your screen that there was a deadline for SQS of May 1st, 2023. Now, some people on the call might be going, wait a minute, you said SQS. What is SQS? SQS is Standards for Quality Soccer. So essentially what this is this is an endorsement by Canada Soccer, by Alberta Soccer, and by CMSA to say this club offers a quality soccer experience. They're a quality soccer provider. And wrapped up in that, a big component of this is 37 criteria. But the biggest one is definitely the coach standards and required training for those coaches. It's required and it's for all clubs, including National Youth Club license holders as well. You'll see a club licensing sometimes diagram that's a pyramid. I like to think about it as a linear progression where there are no levels to it. It's just clubs flow through the levels backwards or forwards, depending on what they want to do and what standards they want to achieve and implement for themselves. What we have is this. We have a list of National Youth Club license holders. We have a small list of Standards for Quality Soccer holders, SQS holders, and then we have a slightly larger list of non-licensed clubs currently. And so you saw that deadline of May 1st, 2023. All of the clubs on the bottom of this screen haven't been able to finish their application or haven't even started their application yet. So what we've done is we've given them a deadline of October 31st to submit to us an action plan of how they are going to finish their application and submit all the required documents before the end of the indoor season. Otherwise, those clubs will not be continuing with CMSA into outdoor 2024. We will work with all of these clubs to attempt to get them on side and to get them going down this path. And to give you an idea of the 37 criteria, one criteria is, does your club have a name? Another criteria is, does your club register all of their players? We're talking about really, really simple things that take anywhere between an hour and a half to 4 hours worth of work to become a licensed club within the Canadian soccer system. If you're a member of one of those clubs, I would ask your club leadership what their plan is to maintain membership and to finish their SQS application. I talked briefly there about coaching standards and that piece being a core component of the SQS club license. And what we have within that is we have two levels of coach standards. We have the modified safe sport roster requirements, and we have a full safe sport roster requirements. We've decided in collaboration with our clubs that the line between those two levels of training is between U11 and U12. So for the purposes of tonight's discussion, all coaches that we're talking about should have a full safe sport roster fulfilled and should be able to satisfy that before season start. What we plan on doing to try and make this happen is a couple of things. We will be monitoring what the clubs are actually inputting and who is on these rosters, because typically they would find little loopholes in the rules and such to put one person in their club that's completed one of the courses, which is respect in sport. They would put them on all club rosters to satisfy that roster requirement. Well, it's no longer the case, and Canada Soccer isn't taking that anymore either. So all coaches are going to need the required training to be eligible to be on those rosters. And I sent out an email early this morning about 6:30 to all of the clubs as a word of caution that should their coaches not have the correct level of certification, that we're going to have to start defaulting games. This has become a non-negotiable, and it's been in the process for almost 3 years now. It's also a piece on the clubs that they need to be accountable to do what's right, not what's easy. and their willingness to adhere to basic standards, and I'll show you them in a minute, are going to determine their longevity in the game here within Calgary. These basic standards that I'm talking about is this diagram here on your screen. You'll see, sorry, someone's just coming in and out. You'll see here, U12 and U13. You'll see these three boxes. So you'll see required for all team officials, which are coaches, assistant coaches, and team managers. This is in alignment with Canada Soccer, is a check mark. So we expect all of our coaches, assistant coaches, and team managers to have a police clearance with vulnerable sector search, as well as complete respect in sport activity leader through the respect group. There's a small nominal charge to complete the respect group course. And that is purchased through the respect group, but we give out the links for those people. Then you'll see these asterisks or stars, which are required education for coaches and assistant coaches. So you will see make ethical decisions, making headway, which is a concussion recognition and concussion treatment course. You'll see rule of two, which means that we're operating in a safe, observable, and justifiable manner with our players and never caught in one-on-one situations where abuse can occur. And then you'll see emergency action planning. So when or if an injury happens, how do we react? Do we have a plan to actually react? And oh, sorry, I didn't really talk about make ethical decisions. That's around eliminating bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination through the game. Then if you slide over, you will see either learn to train or soccer for life. And you'll see two stars there. What those two stars are those two stars mean it's required to do both the online theory and also the practical on-field coaching training that's happening right now throughout Calgary. I'm going to pause there because the recommended coach training is really about a C license, which is going to be changing into a C diploma very shortly in alignment with the rest of the CONCACAF countries. But that's what we want. And that's in alignment with what Canada Soccer wants as well. We know that better coaches and better trained coaches are going to make better environments, which in turn are going to make better players and better people. So we are going to be very, very stringent on these standards in a very short time. I'll come up for air for 2 seconds and check if there's any questions. I can see someone typing in the chat right now. I'll come back to that in just a moment. I talked about the practical coaching courses. So here's a list of dates, and you'll see the capacity that we're able to manage, and also you'll see the enrollment from some of our coaches. You'll see that some of those younger courses for our most valuable resource, if you will, our most valuable people and players, those young players, coaches are not turning out to do the coach training and to put in the work to give them an amazing experience to hopefully then retain them through the game. You'll see learn to train and soccer for life, better attended, but it's also a requirement. So we don't want to be the ones who are forcing compliance and forcing enrollment in this. We need to make sure that we are preaching the value and making sure that coaches recognize how much better they can be, and by giving them some tools that they'll actually have a better experience through their season as well. Registration's still open for some of these. So coaches, if you're on this call tonight, I'd encourage you to be registered in these and to complete them. Learn to Train and Soccer for Life are 4-hour on-field practical courses with a learning facilitator. And I can guarantee you, I'd even put like a money-back guarantee on this one, that you will be a better coach after you walk out of those doors. This diagram here, we can move along to this one. This diagram here really shows the roadmap that we've tried to create for coaches in terms of making it simple for them to understand as well what they need to be doing and what they need to get done to be eligible within CMSA's leagues. I'm going to just pause for a second because I think there's some pieces in the chat. So Question there. If a coach holds a C license, does that take precedence over the other levels of certification? It's a great question. The C license is really geared towards the learn to train and soccer for life age groups. It's kind of an advancement on those two courses. A C license really has no applicable content or very little applicable content for an active starter fundamentals for that age and stage of player. So it would not have anything to do with active starter fundamentals. The course that supersedes those would actually be the children's license there, which is a robust course that gives you a lens onto child development and early child development, and how we structure environments to make things amazing for those young kids. There's also a question here about, is there a pathway to MLS? So that goes back to that player pathway slide that I spoke about in terms of MLS teams having the ability to sign local players and to bring them into their academies. The MLS doesn't have any territory rights anymore associated with it. So we could see an Orlando City Academy Center pop up in Calgary if they really wanted to. I'm going to leave that question that's just popped in there in terms of financial support from Canada Soccer. I'm going to leave that maybe to the end because that could be one that we could go on for hours about. I'm going to keep things rolling and we'll get into that at the end of it. I'm sure a lot of people over the last couple of days have said, oh, the schedule's out, amazing. I can finally plan the rest of my life. Why does it take so long? And we hear that a lot. Why does it take so long? Why is it so last minute? And I want to give people context about what we do to create this schedule, because there's people always that say, don't you just input it all into a computer, hit a button and it spits it out? Sort of, but not really. So the process that we go through is we ask all of the clubs to submit in their tier 1 declarations. So we start from the top and then we work our way down. And that gives us a sense of how many teams are going to be in leagues, if it's very top heavy in terms of the tier 1s. And we can then start our planning about a week to 10 days earlier. Then we ask for team entry. So all of the clubs will have gone through their registration period in the summer. They would have closed their registration, and then they would have held some sort of process where they make their teams. They come to us and they say, hey, we need a U12 tier 2 girls, we need U13 tier 3 boys, and they enter all of their teams. That happens on October 2nd, or it did happen on October 2nd. Then 2 days later, we turn that all around and we bring all of the technical directors and staff from clubs into a centralized meeting called Club Connect. This one's the League Alignment Club Connect. What we do with those is we ask the clubs, what do you think of this league? Is your team going to have meaningful competition at that tier in that league? The clubs all sit there and we go through it team by team, league by league. Some of them move them down, some of them move them up, some of them move them completely to a different age group if it's not going to give them a good, meaningful experience. These club people and the flexibility that we're giving them in terms of trying to develop players in a meaningful way and in meaningful competition to them, these club technical directors are deeply invested in this process and they want to make sure that they get it right. What we do then is we compile all of that and we send it out to them and we say, hey, have a look at this now that you're back home. Communicate with the rest of your staff and get this back to us in 24 hours, 48 hours kind of thing, so that we can start to schedule. That's that team deadline. The step 5 here in terms of the preset play dates, what we try and do is we try and allocate playing times, especially during the indoor season. I'll give you some context of how hard this actually is in a second. But we try to schedule them with a somewhat consistent schedule. Then we compare that with what actual field permits we have, because people will think, well, wait a minute, you probably own all these facilities. Well, no, we are user groups at all of the facilities in the city, except for Calgary West Soccer Center. Calgary Soccer Center is owned by the city. Shoaldice, owned by the city. Genesis Center, owned by Genesis Center. The only facility that we own, if you will, and can control a little bit through a third-party management company is Calgary West Soccer Center. So we collect all of these field permits and we say, right, we've got this many teams in this division and this many field permits, make this happen, design the schedule. That's where that building process takes. And I would applaud the work of Rachel Hugh and Kim Kerr over the last probably 2.5 weeks that have put in, maybe even 3 weeks, that have put in probably 60 to 100-hour weeks consistently, and staying at CMSA's office until midnight and 1 a.m. fairly frequently, to get this done by the deadline that we set. They spend time manipulating things, so making sure that if Rangers and Villains play each other, that the next game isn't Rangers and Villains again. So even the computer program spits all of that out and spits it out wrong typically. We then obviously go through a rescheduling process when all of your teams decide to go to tournament XYZ, and we have to try to make up those games and reschedule those games. To give you an example, the city of Calgary, CMSA, we process more travel permits than the entire province combined. So our teams travel a ton, and it's very difficult for us, especially in a jam-packed indoor season, to be able to reschedule things. And then CMSA does it all over again at the beginning of each season. So it says there at the bottom of your screen, in the 2022-23 indoor season, we scheduled 5,200 games across 60 divisions. Our game grew 16% over last indoor. What didn't grow is our facility time. Our facility time didn't grow 16%. So you can imagine the challenges that we have of not having field permits or not having facilities to be able to actually host games and to do what we want to do and to give these players the best possible experience that we can. And guaranteed there's going to be someone in here that says, well, why don't you just build another facility? Well, it's not really that simple. It's about an $8 to $10 million endeavor, maybe more now with inflation and construction costs skyrocketing, to put up one of these domes. And so what I would encourage you to do is to advocate for us and with us, to advocate to provincial and municipal government representatives to say, wait a minute, hockey has 72 ice rinks and 72 Zambonis and 72 concessions and 72 bleachers, and we have 3 centers. And we are the largest sporting organization in all of Alberta, second only to Alberta Soccer. We have the largest soccer base in the entire province and the largest sporting base in the entire province. So your voices matter and your voices hold a lot of weight. So I'd encourage you to advocate and to reach out to these people. Just going to pause. There is a question in the Q&A. Is there any consideration being given to providing these coaching courses for free to U18 or even U16 players as a training ground? Brad, it's a great question that you've asked there. Let me back up a little bit and give you some economics behind the coaching courses. Coaching courses, active start is, here's the economics and the breakdown of it. $15 per coach goes to Alberta Soccer for active start. The other $25 that CMSA charges literally pays for the facility that we host those courses in. So that $15 that goes to ASA pays the ASA fee and also pays the facilitator who is there delivering the course. With fundamentals, $20 goes to ASA. So I believe that course is $50. So $30 goes to the field cost. And then Learn to Train in Soccer for Life, $25 goes to ASA, and the remaining $45 goes to pay for the field because it is a bigger field requirement to run those courses. To give you an example, between last indoor, and this past outdoor, that period of time, all of the coaching courses that we ran, CMSA profited only $2,000 across all of those. And I believe we ran 14 or 15 different courses through that time period. So we essentially run this at almost a break even as is, even with that nominal charge. The only way that we would be able to offer them for free is if ASA waived that facilitator fee So if the facilitator volunteers their time and ASA waives that coach fee, and also if a club essentially donates the field time for free. That's the only possible way to offer it for free. We're looking at finding some sponsorship for this to do exactly what Brad's suggesting in terms of engaging young people in coaching and also just engaging people in coaching to limit the amount of barriers that are associated with that. So we're currently working on some of that right now. And if anyone knows of any companies or anyone who would like to sponsor some of that coach education and make our game better, more than happy to have a conversation with them and chat about where we're going with it. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about biobanding. This is always kind of a topic of conversation on sidelines and such. What this is an initiative that, and really a process, I should say, of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with growth and maturation, as opposed to their birth date and their chronological age. I'm sure you've all seen it. The same 11-year-old team, same U12 or U13 team, those kids can look vastly different, and there can be giants and there can be very small humans in the same field. Puberty is a very weird and majestic animal, but it affects everyone in a different way. So what we've wanted to do and what we have done is we've instituted a biobanding process throughout all of our leagues. This allows those players who may be a little smaller to be able to go down into a size of game, a speed of game that might be more applicable for them, and hopefully retain them through the game longer. There's well-documented cases of elite players, and when I say elite, I mean world-class players like James Ward-Prowse and Gareth Bale coming through bio-banded experiences and bio-banded environments for a portion of their youth. It's not a demotion. It's not playing down. It's just being bio-banded and trying to give these kids an experience that's going to keep them in the game. The process is the club fills out a form, so we're aware of who's being bio-banded down into that other age group or across somewhere else. And then they are to communicate that to the rest of the opponents within the league so that there's accountability and transparency on everyone's account to make sure that people know that that player over there is bio-banded, and that's fine. That's okay. In the 2.5-ish years that we've been doing this, there's probably been almost 1,000 by this point bioban applications. We've only denied 2, and only 2 complaints have come across my desk so far. So from that lens, if those are the metrics that we're going to evaluate success or failure with initiatives like this, I'm going to call that a success if that's the metrics that we want to use. I also just want to speak briefly about just conduct expectations. So if your children are on the call tonight, or if you're paying attention right now, really it's up to us to set the standard for what we accept and what we don't accept. And we have an opportunity, the best opportunity ever, to create a culture of support and inclusion and camaraderie, and to do something really great and really positive around our game. We also have the exact same opportunity to tear it apart and to make it toxic and negative. So it's up to us to choose. And I leave that image on your screen because really, at the end of the day, it's like wrestling with a pig. When you get covered and you know what, and the pig enjoys it. So the next time we think about having squabbles with other parents on the sidelines, or having a go at a referee, or having a go at another coach, can we just realize that this is the kids' game, that we're really here to facilitate the kids' game and to do our best not to screw it up? Because we can screw it up very easily. And I'm sure someone on the call is thinking, yep, CMSA does a great job at screwing it up. So if you want, we can always have a chat about that anytime. Also want to chat to you about some of our other initiatives in terms of our Empower Her initiative, which is trying to attract, retain, and then progress women and girls in sport to better their own lives and to better themselves. On January 4th, we're going to be running a female-only Learn to Train course, so that practical coach education that we spoke about for women, by women as well. On October 21st, we ran a female-only entry-level course that was jam-packed with 20 new eager young women to become officials and referees. And that was outside of all of the other courses that were co-ed. And then we're going to be running a Free Soccer Friday, which I'll talk to in a moment, but that will be a girls only drop-in day that will have some fun activities planned around and make it a really, really good evening for them. In terms of our referee piece, we hear consistent feedback. We hear consistent feedback around quality and quantity of referees, and we're taking steps to address both of those things. We've put on extra entry-level courses, so we are going to have built our referee base and pool by up to 160 brand new referees for this indoor season. You may be seeing some of these teal shirt referees at your games. What the teal shirt referee that's on your screen says is, I'm a first-year referee. It could literally be their very first game in front of anyone. It could be their very first time blowing their whistle in front of spectators. It could be their very first game. They're learning. Be gentle. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be increasing the severity of the discipline for people who choose to abuse these brand new people within the game. There's simply no place for it at all, especially with children and first-year referees. That wraps up a couple of those points in that slide, so not necessarily in the order. Project Ref is a program that we're partnering with Kidsport and Hockey Calgary on to provide free referee training and equipment, and also upgrading to any kids who receive Kidsport funding. It's a great way for them to get a part-time job, to earn some income, and to also develop some of their life skills through that, some confidence, some communication, conflict de-escalation, behavioral adjustment, and human resources and person management, really, at the end of the day. To address that quality of referees, we're doing two things in the short term, and we're going to be expanding on this in the near future. We've got a mentorship program for all of these new referees that as they come out of their course, they all complete a 6-hour course. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's a 6-hour course to become a referee. We're going to then give them mentorship after that. So the picture that you see on your screen, pardon me, shows a mentor working with their mentee, shows the form that they have to guide that mentee's personal development. So individualizing the development in an effort to retain and progress more Calgary referees and young Calgary referees through the game. We're also combining that with making our mentors better. So we want them to be better people, better communicators, and better educators to connect with these mentees and connect with all of their pod of people who they're working with. I'm going to pause there and check the chat and questions just quick. Nothing there, so I'll keep going. Coaches as well, if there's coaches on the line, or if you live with a coach, if you know a coach, I'm assuming everyone here knows a coach. There's free education being offered for them right now, and that's through the NCCP, which is the National Coaching Certification Program. All available through The Locker, which is a website that houses all of their coach certification and training. The basic mental skills, planning a practice, and teaching and learning are fantastic modules to complete as a coach, and really are, in my opinion, the cornerstone of where we need to be approaching our coaching and our game and our player development. If we start with that mental, social, emotional piece, and we can connect and teach people, we're going to have fantastic players and more fantastic players in the near future. Spoke as well to make ethical decisions earlier. It's currently offered for free right now, and usually it's a $45 or an $85 charge for that course. They're free online and in person until essentially the end of this indoor season. So if you're a coach that needs to get this done, you literally have no better chance that I have seen in my, how long have I been coaching or involved? 18 years in the game. in these capacities. I haven't seen this happen, so you literally have the best chance possible. I said that I would talk about Free Soccer Friday briefly. This is a community outreach and a community enrichment really activity and initiative that we launched this past summer. It's a drop-in soccer piece where kids come and kids play. Kids have got to develop their social and life skills, and this is an avenue for them to do it. It's really, really interesting when you have kids that walk up to you and say, "Do you have a ball?" And all the balls have been given out, and you say, "No, you've got to go and ask someone if you can join in and play." And the look of fear and uncomfort that comes across their eyes is amazing, but it's beautiful at the same time because when they go and introduce themselves to someone and they get accepted and adopted into whatever little pickup game that's happening or whatever little skill that someone's working on and they try and work together, it's a beautiful environment and a beautiful time. I'm not going to lie, it fills my cup a little bit when I'm there. It's completely unstructured, so it's not adult led. It's child led. The child decides what they want to do, how they want to interact with the equipment, with each other, and it's really about connecting community. We're very fortunate to have Service Credit Union as a sponsor for this, and not that this is a formal shout out, but they've been excellent to work with, and this wouldn't be possible without them. We moved this around the city to try and make it accessible for as many people as possible. It's also growing the game. We have people come up to us all the time afterwards and they say, "How do we get more? How do we attend soccer classes? How do we register for a club?" So we're growing the game as well with this initiative. So we're really proud of how it is and what's going on there. November 3rd, as you can see, is at Calgary West Soccer Center, the 10th at Genesis Center, and then November 17th at Calgary Soccer Center. Now all of the bits that everyone actually tuned in for. What is happening in indoor 2023-24 for the U12s and U13s? Well, everything that we're trying to do is based in long-term player development and into this document that was released in 2008, 2009. What you're looking at on your screen is the brochure version. It's the kind of 7, 8, 10-page version, and then there's a very long, very thorough version of this document that you could definitely find floating around on the internet. This is a framework for all of sport across Canada. This framework goes from hockey to badminton, etc. And for some reason, soccer decided to call it long-term player development, but oftentimes you'll see it referred to as long-term athlete development. These age groups are really operating in the learn to train bit. You'll see that the age group is slightly older for the males compared to the females, and then also the train to train age groups there. There's no train to train coaching course because if there would be, it would be in there. And then obviously filtering in through to stage 7, which is active for life and soccer for life. This document is the basis and cornerstone of where Canada Soccer went with their grassroots standards. And so what Canada Soccer has done is they've produced this for our entire country to be aligned in terms of their game formats, their pitch sizes, their goal sizes, referees, restarts, everything to create full alignment across the country. And this is what it says for the U12s and 13s. Now, this is utopian, obviously, in terms of a 9v9 format for the U12s, and we have chosen in CMSA to play 9v9 with our U13s as well. We were actually the first area in the entire country to institute 9v9 at U13, and now we're seeing Nova Scotia adopt it at a provincial level, BC adopt it at a provincial level. Ontario Soccer is running pilots with their OPDL, essentially the Ontario version of the AYSL, U13 boys, and they're studying it to look to implement it there. You'll also see pieces there on coach qualification and training. This is a little outdated already, and it needs a refresh. Canada Soccer hasn't gotten there yet, but you'll see field sizes, you'll see goal sizes, you'll see restarts, etc. This is obviously not where we are at for indoor. Indoor, I'll get to in just a moment. You'll see here in terms of other rules like offside, instituting retreat lines if we need, substitutions, and this beautiful piece around playing time. and players are still encouraged to try all positions at these age groups. Can you go and have a shifting goal? Can you play up front? Can you play as a right back? Can you rotate around? Because we have no idea who they're going to be in the next decade. We know that we need to give them a lot of experiences and varied experiences and give them a lot of developmental opportunities, but we have no idea what the finished article looks like. No one's got that crystal ball. And you'll see there, fair playing time for all players. Now, fair is a word that you can define in many ways. We choose to think about it as equitable playing time. So attitude, effort, interest, attendance, these kinds of pieces are for CMSA cornerstones on what playing time is allocated with. Attitude. Can you have some of your less developmentally advanced players go on the field down 1-0 with 10 minutes left to see if they can get you a goal, to give them that experience, or maybe hold on to a 1-0 lead? Can you give them a variety of experiences as a coach, and can us as parents and guardians and caregivers support them through some of those experiences as well? You'll also see there in terms of game day formats that Canada Soccer gives you flexibility in terms of a festival or league format. And from what we've learned, this culture within Calgary is a culture that's resistant to non-competitive and how do I put it? Yeah, non-competitive, I guess, would be a right way of summarizing it, just because of the cultural landscape within Calgary. And moving into a festival format within this group at this time just isn't an option, but likely will be something that gets implemented shortly. So if you've got younger children, expect changes in and around these age groups to continue as we align and realign to what Canada Soccer is producing. But what does indoor actually look like for us? Well, indoor, it looks like this. It looks like 14 randomized games for all teams. So standardized, it's no longer a range of games. It's 14 randomized games. So what does randomized mean? Randomized means maybe we have a division size. Maybe our U13 Tier 2 boys is 7 teams. Well, they'd play each other once, which is 6 games. They'd play each other again, or a double round robin, which is 12. And then they would just play 2 other opponents completely at random. It works the same if the division size is 15 or 13 or whatever the division size is. You might not play everyone an equal amount of times. Now, someone's going to go, wait a minute, how do you determine a league winner then if you haven't played each other equally? Well, you do points percentages and you do some other things to determine who the league winners are. You'll also see a 7v7 format. And so when you start to tie things together with, we don't have additional field permits, or we have minimal additional field permits, the teams grew by 16% and we forecasted a 5% growth. What does that mean? Well, that means that we can't expand our match formats yet. It's that simple. It means that our U12s are playing at a variety of locations around the city compared to our U13s. That's what it means. A growing game presents these challenges when we don't have facility growth as well. I tend to look at, say, the U12s, for example, actually at having a fairly unique developmental experience. They're going to have different constraints and different environmental nuances that change the way that they play and also change the way that they adapt and their skill evolves. They'll have a hard surface at Calgary Soccer Centre that they could be playing on. They'll have turf fields that vary in terms of feel and quality at Calgary West and Macron, Shoaldice, and Genesis. So it gives them actually quite a unique and kind of exclusive way of progressing the game with some different environmental constraints. You'll see there a Challenge Cup at the end of the season. Challenge Cup essentially is a playoff format for the top 4 teams from U13 onwards. The U12s, I don't believe, are included in this. So a separate piece, a little playoff at the end of the year, a Final Four. And then you'll also see PQCC, which is the Provincial Qualifier Cup competition, which I'll talk to in a moment. For our U12s, you're going to see two 25-minute halves for their gameplay on a 60-minute field booking. So that gives you, if you take 2 minutes, say for halftime away, it gives you between 8-9 minutes ish in terms of warm up time for each game. Our U13s are at two 30-minute halves on a 75-minute field booking. So again, it used to be about 5 minutes warm up time. We've actually been able to expand that slightly into 10 to 12-minute range for our U13s. Is that the absolute ideal amount of warm up time? No. And we know that. Is this the absolute best we can do while trying to allow for more warm up time and the game is expanded 16%? This is stretched to the absolute limit right now. You'll see as well that the U12s have no public scores or standings posted. This is in alignment with changes that Canada Soccer has made ages ago. And then you'll see U13 having public scores and standings being visible on our website. Spoke to the Provincial Qualifier Cup competition for U13s. What we do is we've got a live draw where we split up the teams into two pots. The top seeded teams based on their in-season seeding. So this current indoor season seeding and this season we're going to use to go year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of the seeds, and then say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is in this other pot. We draw one from pot A, we draw one from pot B, and that's the first round matchup for qualifying for provincials. They're single elimination games, and this is again a different developmental experience. We want to put a very heavy, holistic developmental experience on our league games and then offer something different for our Provincial Qualifier Cup competition. How do players deal with adversity? How do players and coaches, for that matter, deal with pressure? How do players and coaches work with holding on to a 1-0 or a 2-1 lead with 10 minutes left to go in the game? How do your tactics change? How does your player placement change? These are developmental experiences, and they can be all positive if we frame it in the right context. You'll see there that the matches and dates are to be determined right now as we're just working through those field allocations and also working through what the actual formats are going to be for the indoor 2023-24 provincials. That format discussion happens this weekend at the Alberta Soccer Special General Meeting, which, if it seems crazy that it's not decided before our season has already started, trust me, I agree with you, but this is the current process that we live in. You'll see here the 7-a-side field map at the Calgary Soccer Centre and at Genesis Centre. You're going to see this on the fields where you'll have an end line that's been painted, you'll have a goal that's been put in, and a penalty area. Your sidelines will be those dashed sidelines on the side of the field, and you'll see the exact same on the opposite side of the field. That's what a 7-a-side field is going to look like at Calgary Soccer Centre and at the Genesis Centre. We ran a pilot before the last indoor where we brought in the U10s and 11s, and we brought in technical leaders from around the city to sit and evaluate and watch what a 7-a-side game would look like with these young age groups in this area. And what it is it's about 3 to 4 yards less in width and 2 yards more in length. So while it optically looks like a significantly smaller area compared to a Calgary West or Shoaldice or Macron even, it's actually almost the same amount of square footage across there. We often get the question of, where does all the money go? So we want to be really upfront and transparent with everyone and say, this is what your club passes on to CMSA in terms of the CMSA fee on a per player basis. So each player that registers with the club would pay CMSA $215 or $220 for the U13s. Someone's going to say, holy smokes, that is a lot of money. Well, let's break it down. Out of that, $24 goes directly to Alberta Soccer. So we don't even see it. We pass it on and it goes directly to ASA. What that leaves us with is $191 or $196. So $13.64 per match within the U12s or $14 per match within the U13s. That's the price that we operate on right now per game. And so what does that $13.64 per game or $14 per game actually go towards? Well, the majority of it is actually the league costs, goes towards field rentals, goes towards paying referees and other league related expenses. There's a small portion of that that goes to contribute to future facility projects so we can continue to either upgrade the facilities we have or build additional facilities to meet the demand of the game. And there's also a donation back to Kidsport. We want to make sure that Kidsport remains able to contribute the mass amount that they contribute to the game here in Calgary. They contribute over $500,000 into player fees for players to play in Calgary, and that's just soccer. So we want to make sure that we are giving them back some of that as well so that they can continue to support our beautiful game. As I've talked about, Alberta and Canada Soccer collect some of that fee and it goes up to them. And a small portion actually goes into our local referee development. This has been increased slightly from last year to this year in terms of how much that is, because we know that we want to make better referees and we want more better referees. So we're instituting programs, we're instituting initiatives to help to develop our local referees as well. And then lastly, once all of that's gone, a very small portion actually helps to pay the CMSA staff to ensure that we attempt to run Calgary soccer efficiently and that we continue to innovate within the game and be leaders nationally with what we're trying to do and the initiatives that we're putting out there. Injuries do happen and they're going to happen. Your kid may become injured at some point this year. When and if that happens, you must fill out a form on Alberta Soccer's website. And this form has to be filled out within 30 days of that injury taking place. This is to access all of the insurance that your fees go to pay for through Alberta Soccer. The process is that you use your personal insurance first, and then the Alberta Soccer insurance kicks in after that money's been exhausted. And we know that even if it's a sprained ankle or something like that, that there are times when the physio and rehab can go on and on and on and on, and your personal insurance may be exhausted quite quickly from that. So it's highly recommended if any injury happens, just fill out the form so then you're covered, even if you need it 3 months later. So what I'll leave you with here is a little kind of capstone video that really just summarizes what we're trying to do and the philosophical approach that CMSA is taking into this indoor season. So sit back and enjoy, and you'll enjoy not listening to me moan on and drone on for a minute or two. And really, that's the crux of it. All of those things start right here. Development, passion, community, belonging, enjoyment, they all start right here within this game. And we have got a unique opportunity to promote all of those things and to build tremendous people for tomorrow. So I'll say thank you to everyone who's gone the distance with us tonight. I really appreciate it. We're just over that hour mark. So you literally could be anywhere in the world doing anything right now, and you've chosen to spend some time with me tonight. So thank you. I'm deeply grateful for your investment in the game and for encouraging your children to continue to play this beautiful game. Your investment, both time, your driving, your advocacy, your support for your children is amazing. And as a new parent myself, I'm starting to learn this as well. And I have a newfound respect for all of you parents. So deeply grateful and thankful for you to join us tonight. I always close every presentation with that image on the left, and you'll see that we can make short strides going at it in different directions alone, or we can make massive leaps forward if we pull in a similar direction. Our clubs are starting to pull in a similar direction. We're starting to move the needle and we're starting to pull the game forward and really be a leader in this country. We're proud of that and we want to continue that. So with your support, we can continue to do that. If you need to reach out to us, you've got obviously the email and the phone number there for the office. And you can also connect with us on any of our social accounts from TikTok, Facebook. That should actually be X now instead of Twitter. YouTube and Instagram is where we operate. So I will leave that up for right now. I'm going to buzz back over into the chat and into the question and answer. We'll start with the Q&A. So none to review. There is some chat though. So I'll start with this one. What percentage of games will the ref mentor be at? I think having the mentor on the field with them, going to some type of two-person system would be great for ref development and retention. Is a great question and a great point. To answer the first part of the question, what percentage of games? We aim to have 4 mentor contacts within their first season. So what does that mean? Well, some new referees will do 20 games in their first season. Some will do 10, some will do 1 and never come back. So we want to make sure that their mentor is at that very first game with them. That's a key piece for us, that any new and brand new referee has their mentor side by side, helping them through it. In terms of the 2-referee system, this is an interesting one because there are certain areas in the province that do use a 2-referee system for boarded games or 7-a-side games. Alberta Soccer's stance on the 2-referee system is that it's actually detrimental for referee development and referee positioning in the games. It often leads to a lot of lazy refereeing as well. This is their words. I'm not a referee and I'm not going to play one on the internet either. But it leads to some bad habits within referees. We are using a 1-referee system in kind of alignment and collaboration with that Alberta Soccer kind of initiative. The interesting part and the part that we are actually bringing up is exactly what Brad is saying here is how do we have the mentor and mentee potentially on the field at the same time? If that's literally that they're tied together with a 2-foot rope between them and they're moving through the field together, that's what it could look like and could actually be very shortly. It's not going to be like a basketball system where you do this half and I'll do this half. It will be a closer tied system. We're also experimenting and going to be experimenting with the use of headsets to help the mentor be in communication with the mentee live during the game to help coach them through the games as well, as part of this initiative. So Brad, it's great thinking, and we're directly kind of aligned with that in terms of finding solutions to have that mentor and mentee relationship really solid during the match. This one says, can you explain what the tier 1, 2, 3, etc. mean and what category A, B, C mean? Well, tier 1, 2, and 3 are really the levels of the game. So typically what will happen at these stages is players and teams will be made with like ability, like motivated, and similar interests within the game kind of players, and they'll be put into different leagues with players that are close to the same level as them, to try and get meaningful competition and trying to get competitive games for the level of the player. So that's what that means. It says, for indoor, does U12 play with dribble-ins or throw-ins? Thanks for confirming. U12 plus will play with throw-ins. This is trying to be consistent with the outdoor game. A lot of the feedback from last indoor, from our technical directors around the city, was that they believe actually that anytime there's a game played, say at Calgary Soccer Center or Genesis, that those games should have dribble-ins. Just because of the size of the field, the bounciness of the surface, etc. The difficult part becomes managing that change, and those nuances at the scale that we operate is simply unachievable as of right now. So for the U12 plus, it's all throw-ins. So the players will be introduced to that and be able to utilize that skill and physical literacy, really. Um, This one says, do you take precautions to not have a referee ref for their own club? There is a process, and that is outlined within our rules and regs in terms of you can imagine slippery roads. Referee hits the ditch on their way. They aren't able to make the game. Well, what happens then? Well, there's a process for that within our rules. So I'd encourage you to do a little bit of digging, a little bit of reading. I'm not going to give you those answers that easily. But go and have a quick look, and if you aren't able to find it, please reach out and I'll give you that answer later. I'm gonna make some people do some work. This says sure, but retention is a bigger problem than lazy refs. Brad, I'm sure that's a comment from what you were saying. Our retention rates for our refereeing aren't atrocious in comparison to the rest of the province. They're certainly not where we would want them to be. Um, Part of it, there's a lot of factors actually that play into referee retention, and it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to try and deal with that. Some pre-submitted questions to us. I'll just rattle through these really quickly. It says, why switching 7v7 for U13? Well, we've addressed that in terms of facility constraints. All age groups play 7-a-side from U10 and up through the indoor season, as that's where we are currently with our facilities in this city. This says, can CMSA please share any plans that they have to help current players that are interested in playing soccer professionally? Is this something that the association does, or is it a parent's responsibility? Any tips would be appreciated. Coaches, scouts, emails, phone numbers, etc. Thank you. So what we don't do at CMSA is we don't do player development. The player development piece happens at your club and within the club environment and the coaches. What we do is we offer a competition mechanism. Obviously, we do some coach ed and we do a myriad of other things, but we don't develop players. If players are interested in playing professionally, I would ask this question first. Are they absolutely obsessed with the game? Do they flip their mattress onto their wall in their bedroom and use it as a rebounder to work on their touch when it's really cold out? I remember a boy, you can look him up now. His name's Alex Ochoa. Went over to the Whitecaps residency, and I believe he's now playing in Spain. He's a 2000 and either 5 or 2006 born boy. He was a player that would go out in the middle of winter and shovel a patch of grass and work on something in the cold. That's obsession. Does your child bug you to go to cavalry games? Does your kid wake up at all hours of the night to watch Canada play Japan or watch our women's national team? That's obsession. That's the core of it to begin with. And then have you developed a home environment that you play with your kid, that they feel comfortable playing, that they love the game, they love interacting with a ball. They'll go and find a wall and smash a ball against it. They're going to develop through the game. It's about retaining them. So if they're interested in playing professionally, what I've always said is a player needs 3 things. They need a ton of ability, which is not just controlling a ball. I mean, technical, tactical, physical, mental, social, emotional. They need heaps of ability. They need an advocate, which are people within your club into high performance programs that are already established here in Calgary. And honestly, they need a little bit of luck. Oftentimes, you need a little bit of luck to make a little breakthrough here and there. Obviously, the CPL is opening up doors like crazy for young Canadian players. They have mandates around playing minutes for young Canadians, so there's increased opportunity. I wouldn't say that this is a parent's responsibility to try and have your kid play professionally. This is something that is a cherry on top of a good developmental experience at the end of the day. And if we're solely focused on trying to produce professional players, the ditches will be littered with the carnage that's caused with a system like that and with parental behavior like that. So have a think about that if that's your piece. If you want to connect more on that, I'm more than happy to try and help. Not sign your child or set your kid up with professional contracts, but to give you an understanding of what this actually looks like. And to give you another piece, I believe the stats were there was some tweets not so long ago. I could find it if you gave me a second, but there was a study done around the number of players in English professional academies that never actually play a professional minute, that come all the way through their youth system. And these are some of the best players in the world. You'll see 0.002% of professional players actually make enough money throughout their playing career that they don't have to work again. We're talking about the ones that make it 0.002% of them make enough money. For me, it's a great dream. It's a great goal. It's something that I would encourage any kid to keep that spark and keep that fire lit. It's not an easy path. It's a very, very difficult path. And our sport can be about so much more than chasing that one. This says it's our first time as indoor soccer participants and not super sure what to expect. Wondering if games are played all over the city. Yes, they will be played all over the city. Do we practice at the same place and day every week? That's up to your club. And do you need shorts and socks? Yes, shorts and socks, highly recommended. You will need shorts and socks. This question is, what is the purpose of player cards and play-up rules for U11 and 12 if there's no record maintained for scores and standings? Well, the player card doesn't determine the scores and standings, and really the public scores and standings are taken away because adults just can't deal with that. Adults make decisions based on scores and standings, and adults use that poorly. And now some kids use that poorly as well from a bullying and cyberbullying perspective. So the player cards is really to identify that that player that's standing before a referee is who they say they are. It's not about anything to do with public scores or standings. I'd like to understand how teams assigned to tier groups. My kid's tier 2 team lost nearly every game. How do you decide where they belong? I feel like we've talked about that with the schedule piece. Clubs enter their teams of where they are. Then we bring them all together. Clubs say yes, or they move teams all over. And then even in season, there's what's called a tier movement deadline, where the clubs have the opportunity, if some are really struggling or some are not being challenged enough, to actually do a tier swap with other teams in ones below or above them. So that's largely up to your club there. Brad's got a comment here. I can hear your comment that it can be hard to scale different rules for different venues, but if all your technical directors, the ones you asked to evaluate, going boardless, why wouldn't you listen to them for dribble in on the smaller fields? What I've learned, Brad, is that one small ripple of change causes massive effects. This is not just about the technical directors having a knowledge of it. This is about them accurately communicating it to all of their volunteer coaches. This is about us managing at scale upwards of 500 or 600 referees knowing this as well, and being able to identify when they walk in the doors there, this is what I have to do, as opposed to when I walk in the doors over there, this is what I have to do. What I've learned is our system and our ecosystem is not at a place where we can develop nuanced pieces like that, just based on how I would say under-resourced the system actually is compared to the scale that it manages. It sounds simple. I would love it to be that simple. Footwear, choosing positions on the team. Don't know what that question's about. Footwear, we've sent out a communication that recommends small rubber molded studs, because then you can play across any surface and any venue within the city. If you buy your typical cleat style sole plate, you won't be able to wear that at Calgary Soccer Center at all. It's actually an incredibly bad idea and will likely result in some sort of injury by using that on that surface. Game structure, timing, rule variances, already went over that. How a player can move to a higher tier, that would be strictly a club process. That's your club evaluating, assessing, placing the player within a team that they feel is the right team and tier for that player. So that's purely a club process there. Why we're playing 7v7 at U13. It's not on par with Edmonton or other tournaments that we play in. Correct. If we wanted an Edmonton style system, here's what you would have. You would have 9-a-side played, likely, I'm just going to take the Edmonton model and Calgary-size it. You would have 9-a-side played with your tier 1 players probably, and boarded played with everyone else. We feel in an equitable game, I'm not saying Edmonton is not being equitable, by the way, but we feel on our values and what we're trying to provide for the players of Calgary that it's a better step that everyone plays 7-a-side than some have this experience and some have that experience. So we've chosen to make a leap towards completely boardless soccer, and we are putting a line in the sand or a marker in the sand to say, this is where we believe the future of the game is going, and this is where we believe we can take this game. This is not about Edmonton having some sort of advantage or anything, because if you think about it, the smaller the sided game is, the more touches on the ball your kids get, potentially the more playing time they get if the roster sizes are appropriate, and the more decisions they actually have to make. So their development actually goes slightly quicker than compared to playing in larger sided game formats. That's also part of the rationale why in outdoor we moved U13 to a 9-a-side format. Smaller, more playing time. We can achieve better cost efficiencies. We can achieve better referee developmental efficiencies, better player and coach developmental efficiencies. And really, the players aren't big enough to play on an 11-a-side pitch yet anyway. Is there a way coaches can provide feedback to individual players at least every 2 weeks? This is to ensure players can cautiously work on it. I think that's supposed to be continuously work on it and eventually improve the game. That's purely down to those coaches and your club coaches. I would say, based on my experience, that giving feedback every 2 weeks is far too frequent and far too often. Anytime that I've done any sort of feedback with players, it's been on a 6-week cycle, sometimes an 8-week cycle. These kids do not skyrocket like this in 2 weeks, or don't do this in 2 weeks either. So I would recommend more of a 6-week to an 8-week kind of check-in, or mid-season, just to make it simple. Hey, this is 3 things that I think you're really great at. Here's 1 growth area for you. And if your club's not providing that kind of meaningful feedback for your child, ask your club to be providing that. It's a key piece to helping these players be intrinsically motivated by receiving some feedback and by being able to go away and work on some things. That's the end of the kind of pre-submitted questions that everyone had submitted. So with that, I will say thank you one more time. Thank you for your engagement. There was a lot of questions. There was a lot of good pieces there, and I appreciate the questions. Again, if you want to reach out to us, our contact info is on your screen now. And if not, if you see me at a center poking around, watching games, hanging out in a corner, please come up, introduce yourself. If you've got questions, more than happy to have a conversation with you. As long as I'm not actively involved in something at that moment. But please, more than happy to have a conversation with anyone about anything soccer related. So with that, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. If anyone else has got any other comments or questions or any burning crises that they need solved right now, then I'm here. And if not, thanks so much. Get back on the couch, get the Survivor or Dancing with the Stars on, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh, I realized I didn't actually get to one of the questions there. My apologies. It's a bit late now with only 2 left, but is there any financial support from Canada Soccer with World Cup coming and expectations around Canada to raise the quality of players in the national team? That is purely a Canada Soccer decision at the end of the day. The goal of some of that money is to filter down into grassroots programs and grassroots environments, but that is purely up to Canada Soccer at the end of the day. So with that, I'm going to shut her down. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your evening.